Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the That Luxe Life podcast, where we talk about living your best life. So everything from motherhood to travel to beauty to business. I'm sharing all the tips on how to take these to live your best luxe life, regardless of the price tag. And today we're on another motherhood topic. We are in season 2, and if you go back to the beginning of season 2, I have shared with why I was on hiatus for so long. There's a big gap between the last season and this season, and honestly, I wasn't even planning on doing seasons. I was planning on just keep chugging along with episodes, and I had to take a break because of everything that was going on in life. And now that I'm back with the podcast, I'm sharing about all of the different things I've learned while I was away on hiatus and providing those tips for others to be able to navigate. I know a lot of people who listen to the podcast are parents or travelers or business owners or lovers of fashion and beauty, everywhere in between. So these tips I typically offer on this podcast are ones that I know a lot of people take and use. So I'm here today with another motherhood topic. With all the things that were going on, I think the last time that I had a podcast, like the last first season, my son was 3. He is now 5 years old and he has started kindergarten. So yes, if you have listened to the past episodes, we moved, we had another baby, and he started kindergarten. And I still cannot believe my little baby, my firstborn, is in kindergarten. He's getting so big. He's learning how to read. He's getting really great with sight words. He's coming home and explaining math concepts to me. He's learning about the garden. He's going on field trips. Like, it's a whole different amount of emotions where honestly, I thought I need to do a whole episode on how I'm coping with my son getting older. But on this episode, I do want to share for those who have young children, how to get your child ready for kindergarten. And this can also come into getting your child ready for school. A lot of these tips I'm going to give connect to both aspects. And as always, as I'm sharing these tips, these are tips that I'm offering from my experience. And every child's different. Every way of parenting is different because we're all different individuals. So I'm not going to sit here and say what I'm offering or what I'm sharing is going to 100% work for your child. It may not. And some things you have to take them and tailor them to what you know about your child. I've taken tips over the years where they were valid tips. And people are like, yes, it worked for my child. I'm like, great. And I had to take them and go, this part of the tip's not going to work for my son because he's just not going to do that. But I was able to still use it in some way. Like, I have one of my best friend who is the godmother of my youngest. She has 2 girls and she offers tips because they're older on things that she's dealt with, especially like school, starting school, learning things. And little girls typically like to sit, and they're a lot more talkative, maybe to a certain extent, but they have a lot less energy. They typically. So her girls used to like sit. They like to sit, draw, color in the lines. Where my son, like many boys, it was all over the place. And I'm like, all right, this is not going to work, but I'm going to make it work. But anywho, my son entered kindergarten at the start of this school year, and it was an adjustment, especially coming after moving, after having, I just had my second son, probably 2 to 3 weeks before he started school. So it was a lot of change going on. So he was in a very emotional state, but we were able to successfully start him in school. And to give you some background, and I talk about it in a previous episode of in the podcast of how to deal with separation anxiety with your toddler. So I'm not going to repeat some of the things that I said in that episode. Go back and listen to that episode to get some more context on that. But in that episode, I talk about my son's separation anxiety was so bad that in daycare, when we started him, and even every year when we started a new classroom, dropping him off was me having to have teachers hold him while I, went and tried to escape the classroom. There was a lot of distractions and things going on. And when he started kindergarten, yes, he's older, but it wasn't strenuous. It wasn't emotional for him, like outwardly crying. I mean, it was emotional for me. I drove away very sad because my baby was in kindergarten. But it was it was a lot easier transition. And here are some things that I want to share that we did to help get him through that transition. So the first thing that we did was we talked about it. If you listen to the previous episode from this podcast that I talk about getting ready for a big move, I share that same tip. We talked about him going to kindergarten as soon as he graduated from daycare, which also made it a lot easier. The daycare made it a lot easier because they were already talking to him about kindergarten. They were getting them excited about graduating. You're going to kindergarten, you're going to big kids school. So we kept that going at home. We were talking about him going to kindergarten. We were talking about how, specifically because with my son, he went to daycare in one district from where we used to live, and we moved into a new district. So we were talking about how he's going to make new friends because they weren't going to be, the friends he made in daycare weren't going to be in his district. He wasn't going to see them again. They weren't going to be in his school. So we were talking about that. We're talking about all the things he's going to learn, all the things, how we talked about it over and over again. We went and got books about starting kindergarten. The great thing about the district that we're in, this elementary school, they actually sent out books for us to read to get him prepared for certain skills, but also to kind of get him prepared for kindergarten overall. I cannot remember the author, but there was one book that we loved, and it actually goes around kindergarten and all these things. It's first book we got was called We Don't Eat Our Friends or something like that. It's a Disney book by an author, and it's about this T-Rex who goes to kindergarten. She's starting kindergarten and she eats her friends, but she has to learn how to not eat her friends and talk and all the things and how to make friends. And there are other books that are currently out now. We're planning on getting them because they talk about other aspects of kindergarten, but there are other ways that you can introduce it. So, I mean, more than just us talking about it with books, we also used his shows that he watches. So my son's a very big fan of Bluey. So we watched episodes of Bluey and how it's Bingo who's in kindergarten. I think it's either Bluey or Bingo. I think it's Bingo who's in kindergarten, and how much fun Bingo's having at kindergarten. And if your child does not watch TV, you could even introduce the Bluey aspect via books. They have plenty of books, but there are books specifically on kindergarten and those different skills. So we just talked about it a lot, got really, 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 really excited. Additionally, what we also started doing is creating a routine. So about like 2 weeks prior to him starting school, especially because we were able to integrate my newborn just so he could kind of be used to the baby being there, we created a nighttime routine with books, little lessons, getting ready on our own bed, getting our clothes out, giving him responsibility for him to prepare for each day at kindergarten, helping him pack lunch in the morning. So yes, before he even started school, we were using the lunchbox for him to pack lunch, and then during the day he'd get his own lunchbox out while he was home with me and eat his lunch, and then be able to put his lunchbox back into his book bag. So we are practicing those routines that he would have in school also at home, and we are creating routines at home that would work for each day. So not only the nighttime routine, but the morning routine. We'd get up, we put our clothes on that we got the night before, we'd brush our teeth, we go downstairs and eat breakfast together. We created those routines so that once school started, the only thing that was different was him going into the building. He was already going to be introduced to the building. Most schools have orientation for the children so they can kind of meet the teacher ahead of time, get accustomed to the classroom. Some schools will even let kids get on the bus to see what the bus ride is. And if your child is taking the bus, even show them the bus route if you can find it. Reach out to the school to see what resources that they have that they can provide you in order to get your child used to what's going to happen in the school day, as well as preparing that routine at home. So that's the second thing we did. Like I said, his school gave a newsletter each week, which was getting ready, your kindergarten ready for school. It includes books, it included skills that they would need to know. And because of all that, we were able to start doing things at home to get him prepared for the curriculum. Our son was he's in full day kindergarten. So it wasn't a big jar because he already had full day daycare, but a lot of the different parts of the curriculum were going to be new. Like he's going to gym class, he's going to art class, he's going to wellness. They're going to different classrooms. So we had to talk about that, but also just general skills, phonics, letters, certain things. So most schools will tell you what they expect your child to come into school with certain knowledge, being able to write, do certain things. A lot of times they just kind of baseline them to see where they are. But most, they typically want them to know how to at least maybe count to 10, know the ABCs, know the difference between uppercase letters and lowercase letters, have that kind of thing. So talk to your school about their expectations. And then if you can, get them any resources to help them practice, especially over the summer. If there were things they didn't learn in daycare, whatever school they were in before, prior to going to kindergarten, preschool, pre-K, see if you can keep that going at home, because that lull during the summer could be detrimental if you're not doing anything. Yes, you want to give them a break, but don't keep their minds active. And I know when you go to like Walmart, Target, Amazon, anywhere, there's all of these books, there's all of these flashcards, there's, apps, there's apps for everything. There are so many resources where you're like, this is a lot of information. Does my child need to know that yet? By talking to your school, talking to the school your child's going to go to, you're going to know what they need to know so you can focus on that. We were able to gather that information so that, some of the practice books of kindergarten books we got, because they were jumbo books, we knew what pages to focus on and which ones to save for why he was in kindergarten. When we got flashcards, we knew what flashcards were actually valuable to get versus just getting all the flashcards and practicing everything. When we ended up downloading ABC Mouse. I knew how to tailor it and what lessons for him to focus on and work with him with instead of just following the path, so that we knew what he needed to have known beforehand that he might have been struggling on, and then what we could work on while he's in school to work on it with in tandem. So talk to your school, ask what they're doing, see if they can provide you those things so that you can kind of get ahead of it. Our school even told us, we're going to start working on sight words. Here's the modules ahead of time. So I was able to prepare flashcards ahead of time and got the card sight words and kind of start working on sounds with him for letters and doing those certain things. So if that's something you can do, great. If your child's already beyond that level, keep going, more power to you. My son struggled with writing his name and we weren't exactly on reading yet. He was only at that point where he was like memorizing his books that he loved, which for those who don't know, that is a sign of reading preparedness. So keep going with it. But talk to your school. And that also goes with that tip that practice those basic skills. So not only the skills for school, but your school, most schools will ask for kindergartners to come in with a certain basic skill level. And when I say basic skills, it's like knowing how to get themselves dressed, because if your child has an accident, they can't necessarily stop and get your child dressed again, nor do some schools aren't comfortable with crossing that line. They want to make sure that your child can go to the bathroom by themselves. That's even including going number 2, how to wipe their own butt so they're not walking around stinky. We had to work on that with my son. How to wipe your butt. Like that's a thing. You have to talk about that as a parent, how to teach your child to wipe their butt. Some schools will say, practice your kid how to tie their shoe. My son does not know to tie his shoe right now. And the reason why, I won't say this hasn't because we've practiced, most kids' shoes have Velcro or they're elastic. There are not many shoes that have shoelaces. I went to a lot of stores over the summer to try to find shoes that have shoelaces, and I found one pair in one store, and I went to 6 stores and looked at a lot of shoes. I even went to shoe-specific stores. I ended up finding it in, I don't know if it was the Nike store. I don't think it was the Nike store for his age group and his size. But anyway, I forget what store it was, but you can still practice. They practice with it like in his pre-K class, but those basic skills. So just kind of find out from the school what school you should know. You can even just Google it. Like I said, a lot of it's wiping your butt, know how to blow your nose, know how to get yourself dressed, know how to tie your shoe, knowing how to open certain packets at food, because they don't usually have a lot of help, people to help kids open their things. Having your child know those basic skills is super important. So check with those. Like I said, Google it. There's a whole list there, and some things are like all over the place where they're not necessarily basic skills every school asks for you to know, but just check with them. The last thing is get your child excited. Children cope better when they are excited. With my son, we talked about how he was going to be making new friends, how he was going to be able to draw all the time, how he was going to be able to go out at recess from the playground, a new playground. He's going to be able to learn new things. He was going to be able to, learn music and play instruments. So we talked about all of the things that he's going to be doing in kindergarten and how fun it was going to be. And most kids, when they're looking forward to something, they're really excited about it. We even just kept driving by his school because it's closer to us and going, look, it's your new school. How exciting is that? Look, we're going to go meet your new teacher. How exciting is that? We're going to meet some of your new friends. So everything we made exciting. And we've learned that with any change that happens with our child, and I've learned that a lot with other kids because, I have a niece and nephew as well. When we're able as parents, as caregivers, make things exciting for children, they internalize that and it becomes real excitement for them. Even if when it's first introduced to them, it's not exciting at first, keep repeatedly making it exciting. And they will join along with you. One day they're going to wake up and go, I'm so excited, I'm ready for this. And on that first day of school, they will not be crying, they'll be running all ready to go to school, and you as the parent may be sitting there crying because your baby is now entering into kindergarten. Like me, that's where I was. My son got out the building and ran off and he was gone. It's been like that every day. He gets out the car line, goes into the building. He waves bye to me. I tell him have a good day. Sometimes I don't even say bye. He just leaves and starts talking to some of his friends he sees coming from the car line or teachers. And I'm the one sad because my baby has gone. He keeps getting bigger. So those are my tips, and I hope that you find them very useful. But that's living my Luxe life. I've learned these tips. It's making my life luxurious for not only me, but for my children and my family. Now, if you are on YouTube watching this episode, make sure you check out the full podcast and all of the episodes anywhere you can find podcast episodes such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, so on and so forth. And if you are listening to this just on a podcast channel such as, like I said, Apple, Spotify, make sure you head to my YouTube channel, Living Lesh, where you can also visually see the podcast episodes and subscribe to my channel. And you can also see a bunch of other videos. And of course, for anybody else out there, make sure you follow the That Luxe Life podcast Instagram. It's literally That Luxe Life podcast. That's the handle. And also check out my normal channels, my website, Living Lesh, as well as my Instagram, TikTok, Living Lesh. Thank you again, always, for listening to these episodes. I'm coming up with more, sharing so many tips, so stay tuned.